of all, I have to give a little shout out to my clients because they gave me this cute little coffee cup with, you can't see it because of my background, but there you go. And I love the message on it. It's a bamboo coffee cup, which is kind of cool. So it's reusable. Yeah. And it says, grace is enough.
Oh, so, nice. Very nice.
So I will admit, moved to tears, and Shannon knows that I usually only cry when I'm mad. And so this morning watching the honor guard bring in Ruth Bader Ginsburg to the Capitol building from where she had been laying in repose. She's now officially this morning the first female and the first Jewish female to be given the honor of lying in state at the Senate Capitol building, or the Capitol building. And on top of that, she is lying in state, placed on the same pedestal or support furniture thing that Abraham Lincoln was laying in state on. So obviously affording her all of the honor that she deserves, and it was very moving. So
that's amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah. Yes, incredible. At least you know, I think that I think what's the most amazing thing about the 2 weeks, if we look at the positive side since she passed, is that our children, if they weren't aware of her, are going to be very aware of her and know her, so, and know what she accomplished. So that's fantastic. So
yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to chatting with another amazing female who affects our local children and is a force to be reckoned with. So Jenny Luciano from Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I'll just start by starting out her introduction that she's spent her career in nonprofit management, overseeing fund development, marketing, communications, public relations, government relations, and volunteer management.
She started her career in New York State working for Cornell Cooperative Extension's 4-H youth development programs, and furthered her career in Silicon Valley, working for various social service, safety net, public policy, and human services organizations. During that time, she raised over $70 million for the organizations she has served.
Jenny was born and raised in Santa Barbara. She is a Cal Poly alum, where she received her BS in journalism with a minor in public relations and speech communications. In 2016, Jenny and her family returned to the Central Coast, where she took over leadership of the Child Development Resource Center of the Central Coast, a therapeutic preschool in San Luis Obispo. In addition to her nonprofit work, Ms. Luciano is currently a member of the Monday Club and Leadership SLO class 27.
Yeah, it's hard to read those Roman numerals.
I know.
Let's welcome Jenny. And I actually was very interested in your educational background because you have a similar educational background to mine, and I didn't know that. So I'm not a journalism major. I'm an English Lit major, but I was a journalism minor, and that's what I wanted to do. So I'm curious, with your educational background being journalism and communications, what led you to the nonprofit sector as a career?
I completely fell into it. And it's interesting because you go into a career and you think, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be like this great big professional hard driver. Women do that. You know, that's what was expected of my generation anyway. And interestingly, I was a lifelong 4-H'er. I still am, and was very involved in the 4-H programs growing up. And that's what ended up leading me to Cal Poly. We did a lot of speech, communication, that kind of stuff through our leadership programs. And I thought, okay, well, I'm good at that. I ended up applying at Cal Poly. It was the only school that I applied to because I was not a student. And as it ended up, I was immediately admitted to speech communications. And then through this odd transition, I don't know if any of you have ever had to take the class rhetoric, but it's awful. It's just awful, in my opinion. No offense to any of those rhetoricians out there. Anyway, I did not do well in rhetoric. And my department chair, I'll never forget this, he said, honey, you should just quit and get a good job now, because this doesn't work for you. And then I'm like, maybe it's you that's not working for me.
Yeah.
So I ended up changing majors, and that's when I went into journalism. My mom said, oh, you'd be great at PR, you'd be great at PR. And all along I thought, okay, I'm going to go to San Francisco and I'm going to be this high-powered PR lady. Didn't happen. After I graduated from Cal Poly, I did go up north, and I was living with my sister, and I was renting apartment units, and I was actually doing some real estate stuff. Actually worked in title a little bit too. Anyway, long story short, I ended up traveling to Luxembourg with the 4-H programs. And when I came back, I knew that I didn't want to go do PR stuff. So I floated around for a little bit, and then I fell into this job at the food bank in Santa Barbara County. And actually, it didn't really quite start there. I came back from Luxembourg, and I was interviewing all over the United States because my state 4-H director said, hey, what are you going to do now? I said, I have no idea. And he sent my resume out all over the United States. He said, man, you'd make a great 4-H agent. And I interviewed in Nebraska and New York, and I got both jobs. And I thought, okay, I'm ready for another adventure. So, and I was 24. I packed up all my boxes and I shipped my bed to New York, and there I was. Upstate New York, more cows than people. And I was there 2 weeks, and I met my husband.
Oh,
that's a good story.
That's a good story. Yeah.
After that, it was kind of this slow, steady prod with nonprofits up the hill. I came back, we moved back from New York State, and my husband went back to school because he was a cable lineman at the time. Now he's a nurse practitioner. And kind of lo and behold, here we are 30 years later.
Oh my God.
And I've just kind of had this steady nonprofit career and climb up the nonprofit ladder.
Okay, so that goes into pretty much the next question that I'm going to ask you is, in order to run a nonprofit, you have to have a passion for it, because it's a constant round-the-clock fundraising effort. Tell us why you're passionate about Big Brothers Big Sisters.
So I started my career in youth development with the 4-H programs. There's this theme running through here. And mentors played such an incredible role in my life. And there were amazing men and women who just made such an incredible impact and influence on my life. And the other part of that is I have a huge passion for low-income, at-risk kids. Through no fault of their own, they're in pretty tenuous circumstances. It's poverty, single parenting, all kinds of abuse and neglect issues, familial substance abuse, and it's just, no kid should ever have to go through that. No kid should ever have to go through that. And this particular mentoring program does an amazing job at making sure that that child is connected if they want to be connected for a lifetime. The relationships are that deep and that wide, and it's amazing to see the transformations in the kids in just a short period of time. But it gives me goosebumps is that when you can say you've helped a child be the first person to graduate from high school in their family, or the first person to graduate from college in their family, that is a whole paradigm shift for that, not only that kid, but their kids going forward. and their family currently. So it has tremendous generational impact, and that's worth my time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Great. Wonderful.
It's
Thank
incredible.
you.
I noticed that earlier this year, in response to all the racial injustice movement, Big Brothers and Big Sisters announced that they had joined the America's Promise Alliance. What does that mean for your organization on the local level?
Well, it's never really been different. We welcome everybody, from, you know, black, white, purple, orange, LGBTQ, you name it. We are welcoming of those youth. You know, a very wise person told me once, when you take away the top layer, we're all the same. We all have blood pumping through our veins, a heart in our chest, and a muscular skeletal structure. There's no difference. We all have incredible hearts and big brains, and every single person deserves the dignity of and respect of quality support. So that's what it means for our organization locally. It should mean that across the entire world. And the fact that we're having these conversations tells me that we still have a lot of work to do, and that work starts very young. I was reading an article that was talking about the fact that children develop their racial biases as early as the age of 2. So we got to get started early, folks. We got to get them, you know, talking about and embracing their fellow human beings, because that's what they are, is they're human beings. They're not anything else. We're not defined by our race or our color or our gender orientation or anything that makes us different. It's what makes us unique.
Right.
That's beautiful. Yes, very true.
That's so beautiful.
Great answer.
Yeah, no kidding.
All members of the human race. That's the race we're members of. Okay, so I was tooling around on the website and looking at all the matches on Facebook and the match anniversaries, and it got me to thinking about, what do you look for in a big brother or big sister, and how do you find those volunteers to devote that time to it?
So we look for somebody that has a heart for kids. We look at, you know, do they have the time to commit to, first of all, just 1 year of their life, because studies say that the mentoring impact starts anywhere between 9 to 12 months. So we know if we can get that child past the 12-month mark, we've already made an indelible impact on their life forever.
Oh, interesting.
So we look for people that can give a year, and what we look for is about 6 to 8 months a year. Right now during COVID, that's a little bit relaxed because we're doing everything online, and so are our matches. We do have some matches that are meeting in person. They've signed waivers and they've elected to continue to meet with their littles in person. Of course, we're not encouraging that through COVID. But these are people that are already so close to their social bubbles that you'll hear in so many instances that they say, these people are part of my family. It doesn't matter whether it's the big or the little. So we look for people with a heart for kids. We look for people that have backgrounds that offer something to share. When we match a child with an adult or even a teenager, we're looking at their personal characteristics. So they go through about each party. So there's 3 people in a match party. There's the child, there's the volunteer, and then there's the parent guardian. Every single person goes through an in-depth interview, and then we write up an assessment on that person. And there's background screenings and that kind of thing. But those interviews and assessments really help us understand who that individual is. What's their personality? What do they like to do? What are their triggers? How do we, what goals do they have? How do we support them? So we look at the entire package, and then we look for adults and children who have similarities that live in the same area, and we put them together.
Awesome.
Sometimes it works, I would say the majority of the time it works amazingly. Sometimes it doesn't work so well. We're all human beings. So we try and figure it out and coach people through the hard spots and move on from there. But I think the beauty of the Big Brothers Big Sisters program is that it's so individualized, and people can do it at their own pace, on their own time, on their own schedule. You're not having to show up to a meeting and punch a clock and say, okay, I'm here at 5 p.m. And I'll be here for the next 2 hours. This is, I'm gonna go to the beach with my dog today, and I'll bring along my little. Or I'm gonna go grocery shopping, and what a great life skill to teach a young person. I'm gonna go to the baseball game and share that with my little. So these are typically fun leisure activities that people can bond over.
Awesome.
Wow.
That's what we look for.
We have a family friend that's been, he was a little when his parents divorced in Southern California, and then he's been a big because he so appreciates the program and felt like almost like not a responsibility, but just like he needed to pay it back or pay it forward. And so he's been a big, even when he had his own kids. So he feels a really strong bond over the whole program. So, and I'm not sure if he's through your offices. His name is Brendan Reitzma. So
I haven't heard his name.
He might be through the Santa Maria offices.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of interesting transitions like that, particularly with our school-based program. So we're seeing our littles, we've got 2 programs. We've got our community-based program, which is what the majority of people are familiar with, where we match an adult big with a young little, and they go off into the community and, do fun stuff together, and the mentoring follows. And then our school-based program is kind of a 2-for-1 program, where we have elementary school students at 3 of our Title I schools here in the county that are matched with high school bigs. And so the high school bigs get an opportunity to develop leadership skills and opportunities to figure out how to, and the littles get the mentoring, and we meet in a facilitated program once a month. And that program runs through the school year. But what's really interesting is we're seeing littles in that program go from being littles as an elementary school student to becoming a big in our high school program, and then becoming a big outside of our high school program and our community-based program. So there's some really nice incremental steps that are happening, which is, it's just a lovely trajectory.
We've all had to pivot in the events of 2020. What has been the impact in your organization, and how have you adapted to our new normal?
Fun words, new normal, pandemic.
The new normal. I hope it's not normal. First of all.
Well, I can imagine with the program that you were just talking about, the school program, that probably isn't happening. So that's kind of a bummer. So
well, actually, it is happening. Yeah. So in March, when we all moved to our home offices, that's when school closed, or at least, transitioned off of school campuses. And so we were in the midst of our school-based program, or finishing it up for the year. We had 3 months left in it. And our team did an amazing job. We reached out to every single family that is matched. Mm-hmm. And we did an assessment of what their needs are. So food, shelter, clothing, rent support, mental health support, you name it, sky's the limit. We provided resources for that. And I think that's one of the things that people don't know about our program, is that we do such heavy case management with our matches. Mm-hmm. For the first year of the match, every single month, a child and adult and their volunteer all get what we call match support phone call or check-in of some kind. So we were doing those match support phone calls with everybody to try and make sure, you know, the families had the resources that they needed, that they had the technology that they needed to perform and finish up school. So our team was resourcing that. And then really quickly after that, our school-based team had to figure out how to transition all of our programs from in-person to online and get these elementary and high school students, typically not a problem for high school students, right? They can navigate the technology, but it's the younger kids that are a bit more challenged in trying to figure that out because they need a parent or somebody there to support them. But we were able to successfully do that, and knock on wood, I'm crossing my fingers. We're ready to launch online school-based programs for the 2020-2021 school year in October. So we've about 50% of the participation that we had last year, but you know, the good news is that we've got people participating and continuing to find value in that mentoring. We've also had to really hustle in terms of the fundraising, just like every other nonprofit. You know, it's almost like a shell game. Okay, what do I do now? What do I do here? What do I do here? And there's lots of conversations happening and trying to figure out where our organization can help fill gaps. One of the big gaps that we're seeing, particularly with our school-based and high school bigs, is that kids need tutoring right now. Mm-hmm. This whole shift to online distance learning, they're not getting enough support, and the teachers are doing everything that they can do. Hats off to them, absolutely. So we're trying to figure out how we can fund an additional tutoring program, because we've got some alliances with Cal Poly fraternities who also want to help. And we think that we can match these kids up with adult tutors. And so we're trying to figure out how to do that right now.
Wow. Jordan, but she's calling your name.
I know.
Jordan
three
has
little ones at home.
ones. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Definitely a challenge.
Yeah, I don't think parents understood, and I'm speaking from myself in particular, that time in the classroom when the instruction is not happening from the front of the room, but the teacher is circling the room and catching the ones that are a little bit behind up to the rest of the herd. That is irreplaceable. You don't get that between Zooms. So you get the instruction and then they go off on their own and there's none of that support. So that's a really hard thing to replicate. With my 13-year-old, I think that's the biggest thing that he's missing, is that the teacher knows where his weaknesses are and can catch that up in between times. So that'll be a great program. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that we're seeing is that there are a lot of kids with special needs who are not getting their, you know, they're getting the support that their IEP outlines, but they're not getting the support in the same way. And so that there's some real gaps. And the school building, not education in general, but the school building, even that peer support is huge. And not having that peer support in place is also a detriment to our kids. So there's lots to, we've learned so much, right, about our own selves and what we can tolerate, about the resilience of our kids and our families. But there are some things that we just can't replace.
Right. Yep. Well, you have a big event that you're gearing up for in just over a month, and we just wanted to hear a little bit more about what you have planned.
Thank you. So our big event is our largest fundraiser of the year, and probably like so many nonprofits, you've heard that we also had to postpone our big event. And it is typically an in-person silent and live auction with food and wine tasting. It's a really lovely event, typically out at Thousand Hills Ranch. Thank you so much to the Teixeiras for always welcoming us out there. This year we can't do that. So we're moving it all online, and we're squishing,
which I have to interrupt you and
probably about a 6-hour event.
I have to interrupt you and give you some kudos though, because you pioneered the technology in person last year. I don't know if that was the first year you did it, but Michael and I were super impressed with the silent auction on your phone. You checked in, you entered all your information, and then you could do all your bidding online. And as soon as we started thinking of our various fundraisers that we can't do, I was like, Jenny is so in front of the game here, because you already knew how the software worked. So that's awesome.
Well, we didn't pioneer it. We use a software package, but it is really cool. So yes, we are ahead of the game. So we've moved this auction online, and it will be a combination silent and live auction with lots of great video about kids and their mentors, and how they're thriving or not through COVID. We will be making the case for making a big gift where lots of zeros included for the auction. Yeah. And we're encouraging watch parties. So get your friends together, have a watch party. You're all probably in your own personal bubbles, and you can tune in. It's a 2-device event, so you watch on one device and you bid on the other.
Awesome.
And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
What date? When is that happening?
It's November 7th, and we start the pre-show at 4:30. The event starts at 5. It's going to run for no more than 1 hour, because people just get exhausted online, right? And we've all been on our screens all week. So we're gonna finish off by 6, and people will be done and out the door and on their way to do other things that night. But come on out and support all of these kids who just really need our help right now. It's really interesting. I know you're probably trying to wrap up the interview, but I read a fantastic article. It's called "The Kids Are Not All Right." And it was in the Atlantic Monthly. And it talked about how there's this real disparity right now between the kids who have things and the kids who don't. But now with COVID, you've really exacerbated all of the economic and social, emotional, and peer-to-peer issues that have kind of been compounding themselves over the years with family economics and everything else. And if you haven't had a chance to read that article, it is so interesting to see what that dynamic looks like, and that shift between, pre-COVID and post-COVID.
I agree with you. I'll have to check that article out, because I remember a news program, it hasn't really been talked about too much since, but a news program right after we shut down about how there were families where the parents were having to sit in cars with their kids in parking lots that they could get Wi-Fi because they don't have Wi-Fi at home. And I think that that's a foreign concept to a certain group of us. Like when you're a certain level of income and above, you don't even have to be that high of an income. There's just that breaking point where Wi-Fi is not a normal thing. You don't buy the Charter Spectrum package. You can't afford it. You probably don't have cable. So, and I don't think any of us really examine that very much in our day-to-day life, that it isn't just that they don't have the tools. Like the school gives them the tools. Here's your Chromebook, go home. Yeah, go home and do what? So, yeah, that's amazing. And I it's very important to know that people like you and your organization are doing that kind of support to fill in those gaps, because it's needed. So
thank you.
Thank you for all you do. And thank you for getting up early.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Talk about it and share it online.
Yeah.
All of
Yeah. Well, we will be spreading the word all over all of our social media channels and promoting your event. We'll share and maybe we'll even form our little watch party for it. So
November 7th.
I don't know if you guys know this, but I have a great fondness for realtors. My mom was a realtor for about 40 years.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Yeah. And you survived. You made it out. Shannon and I
survived because she was a realtor.
Shannon and I are both legacy real estate families, and Shannon went full steam ahead running for this career, and I hid from it for at least a decade and finally got sucked back in, and now I have appreciation for it. So we do understand our hard charging, fierce realtor mommies.
I think I'm still hiding from it, Ashley.
It's okay. I'm here for you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll send you the link, and have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity. Have a great day, you guys.
All right, Jenny.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
This is Ashley Boyer,
Jordan Hamm,
And Shannon Bowdey
with the Pismo Beach Home Team.